Hey y'all, today I'm going to be building a solder smoke absorber to help filter out some of the smoke particulates I really shouldn't be breathing in while soldering. This is going to be a hodgepodge of scrap, old project parts I never used, and a couple 3D prints a friend of mine printed for me. Here's what I'm using. A 12 volt 120mm fan, a 12 volt power supply I had lying around, a switch with a 3D printed case I modeled for a project that never happened, this 3D printed case I found online, an activated charcoal filter meant for an air purifier, and the usual solder, wire, flux, and some hot glue. The case is dirt simple, and could be replaced with a cardboard box and duct tape if you don't have access to a 3D printer. The filter wasn't sized for this case, I'm actually repurposing it. It's originally for a Honeywell air purifier, but it's close enough. I've pre-cut it to fit. I've already hacked this fan once to run it off a DC barrel jack. Just started by cutting off the third wire from the fan since it's always going to be running at full power. Then I connected it to the port for the barrel jack. I chopped the end off some proprietary old power supply and connected the wires to the barrel jack connector. The main thing there was to make sure the polarity is correct or it would burn out the fan. Now I'm wiring up the switch. First I'll remove one wire from the barrel jack, in this case the positive lead from the fan. I'll be wiring that directly to the switch, then adding a wire from the other end of the switch back to the barrel jack. Here's a janky wiring diagram so you can follow along. I'm going to add a bit of heat shrink on the wires now, so once I'm done soldering I can slide it over and shrink it in place for some strain relief. If you don't have heat shrink, you can also use hot glue. Either one works. Once the wires are in place and soldered, before I heat shrink anything, I'll test and make sure it's working. The fan turns on, so that's a great sign. Now I'll get to heat shrinking. Turns out I got too close to the soldering iron with the heat shrink on one side and it preemptively shrunk. So I'm carefully cutting it off and I'll just use hot glue instead. I'll still heat shrink the other side though. And after it's done, you can see it makes a pretty solid connection. Now for the dab of hot glue. Testing it again to make sure I didn't cut the wire by accident. And it's still working, so we're good. Now with the wiring done, we can put it all together. Filter goes in first, then the fan, making sure that the intake is up against the filter and it's blowing out the back. This case is pretty tight, so it should be held in with friction. I just need to force it in. Now let's see if it actually works. I've got it lifted and I'm going to apply some solder to my iron. Looks like it's working, even when pulling straight down. Here's a front side test, and it's got decent range, so I'm happy. Now to throw the switch into its case, and I've only just realized I have no plan for cable management. I figured I could glue the extra wire down to the top, but that's kind of dumb, so I'll figure something else out. Maybe zip ties? I'm going to hot glue the switch into its case in the meantime and make sure the wires get a nice coating in there too for some extra strain relief. Testing again, still working. Nice. I'll glue the barrel jack connector to the bottom of the switch to keep it out of my way, and again reduce wire strain since it's not going to be moving around much now. I'm going to place the switch on the side of the case, making sure to keep it raised by a few inches so I can fit the other end of the barrel jack connection underneath it while the case rests on a flat surface. Since the case doesn't have a place for a switch, I might model my own one day, but for now this is going to be more than good enough. And now I figured I could cable manage by just looping the cables around the switch and calling it done. Now for the final test. It's working great, and you can see the particulates are starting to build up on the filter. Glad those won't be going into my lungs anymore. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next one.